Hello and welcome to this NCFE Provider webinar. This onboarding webinar is for all staff involved in the delivery of NCFE Functional Skills qualifications. My name is Patricia Devlin. I'm a Provider Development Officer for Functional Skills, and my role is to support centres through the planning, onboarding and CPD process for NCFE qualifications. My background's English, having taught it for 20 years, and I'm joined by my colleague Charmaine. The objective of this session is to give an overview of the information and all the latest updates on NCFE Functional Skills qualifications. Some of the content you may already be familiar with in the General Information section. However, there were new changes that came into effect from October the 17th, so we will cover what is staying the same and what's changed in the assessment structure sections before finishing with the support you can expect from NCFE with your delivery. We'll begin with general information, so much of which is staying the same from 24 to 25. So here we have some useful information. Online and paper-based assessments at Level 1 and Level 2 are available on demand. Paper-based assessments must be booked 6 working days in advance, while online assessments can be booked immediately. Entry-level assessments are also on demand and are available on booking and can be sat anytime within 6 weeks of booking. Please note that paper-based assessments cannot be sent internationally, so international centres must book external assessments to be sat online. NCFE guarantee your learners' results within 6 working days. For online assessment, this time begins from when the assessments are completed. For paper-based assessments, the 6 working days starts from when we receive the papers. The only exception to this is when new papers are released and they have to go through awarding, which delays results. The dates for these changes are shown on the updates page on our website. It's important that centres do not avoid these dates, as we need to have enough learners sitting during that window to allow us to decide the pass mark. However, it is something to be aware of. It is possible to book your learners for remote invigilation, and the linked page has further information on this. You're also provided with free automated feedback for on-screen and paper-based assessments. On-screen feedback is accessed from Surpass and paper-based feedback is accessed from the portal. This feedback is great for interventions and identifying areas of strength and weakness. So let us begin by looking at where you will find information about each of the functional skills qualifications. So all the functional skills qualifications have their own page on the website. Everything you need for that qualification subject level is in one place. All the qualification pages are laid out in the same way, so I'll show you the Level 1 English Qual page as an example over the next few slides. When you open the page, you can see the qualification details. The fee includes 1 free resit. Further down the page in the qualifications detail tab, there is information on who the qualification is for, the entry requirements, qualification structure, and at the bottom of the page, we have useful links to the regulations and booking document, reasonable adjustments, direct claim status pages, and more. In the Support Material tab, you will find mandatory and additional information. The mandatory qualification information drop-down has links to the specification. There is a fact sheet and mapping document, and clicking on the drop-downs, you can find the learner checklist and support handbook. The Assessment Material tab is where you'll notice the biggest changes recently. The Chief Examiner reports are helpful to know the typical learner struggles and strengths. I'll go over the internal guidance later, as everything in this internal tab relates to the SLC. Clicking on the drop-down from the Sample Assessment tab will also allow you to log in and download the new style sample assessments. Additional practice papers are coming soon, and the dates for these are shown in the Assessment Materials tab. For example, for English at Level 1, the practice paper will be available from the 14th of November. In the Teacher Materials tab, you can purchase our new resources and workbooks and also log in to download our free scheme of work. To access the sample of the resources, you click on the Find Out More and from there you can download a free sample. There is a sample of the workbooks that you can access in the same way. The key date pages show all the dates that the new paper will be released in this academic session. So the papers set from October the 17th will be available on the 4th of December 2025. This is because they are new papers and need to go through the awarding process. The other windows shown on the page are the only other times this academic session that there will be any delay to our usual 6 working day result turnaround.
Internally assessed qualifications must be externally quality assured by NCFE. Entry-level functional skills qualifications and the SLC for all levels are internally assessed. You're allocated 2 EQA visits per year for each sector group, and functional skills are in their own sector group. If you do need an extra visit, you can book that by following the link on the slide. To encourage best practice, we do offer a reward system called Direct Claim Status. When you achieve Direct Claim Status, you'll be able to claim learner certificates without needing authorization from your external quality assurer or EQA. You can find out more information on Direct Claim Status from our website. Now, the invigilation requirements changed all the way back in 2019 now. So for those of you who've been delivering functional skills for a while, you'll be fully familiar with this. The regulations state that no teacher of a functional skills qualification level 1 or level 2 can be involved in the administration of assessments for functional skills. So for example, a subject teacher of English could not invigilate any of the English functional skills qualifications. If, however, a functional skills English teacher did not teach or support learners in any way for their maths, then it's absolutely fine for an English functional skills teacher to invigilate a maths functional skills exam. There have been concerns raised about the invigilation requirements. So there are some exceptions to the regulations, but they're only allowable on advance approval from NCFE. So these include restrictions within the centre on the grounds of security or safeguarding, instances where an assessment is conducted at a learner's workplace and an assessment centre is not available locally, the remote location of the learner's workplace or assessment location, or if arrangements need to be put into place to support a specific learner with special educational needs by way of an access arrangement or reasonable adjustment. And that does include if you have a separate invigilator but you are using a support member of staff to be a reader or a scribe, for example, and that support member of staff is usually supporting in the lessons. So what we would ask is that you complete our invigilation exception request. For all exemptions, you must have exhausted all possibilities before submitting an exception request. We do have available an on-demand webinar for invigilation that looks at all the possible scenarios and situations. But if you're unsure, you can contact customer support or you can email our assessment delivery team on functional skills queries at ncfe.org.uk. You just explain the needs of the centre, and then once an exemption has been made, it does last for the whole year. On this slide, we have all of the regulations. They're all linked. So you've got everything is actually found from the opening link, the assessment regulations and guidance page. You've got the qualification specific instructions for delivery. You've got the regulations for the conduct of controlled assessments for entry-level maths, reading and writing. You've got the JCQ instructions and the NCFE specific booking document. And then you also have the SLC guidance at both entry-level and level 1 and level 2. Please do make sure that you read the regulations in full, no matter what your role is, so that you can make sure that you are following the regulations at all times. All registrations are made in the portal. Paper-based assessments are booked in the portal, and you will also claim for the SLC in the portal. You can refer to the portal user guide and also the recording that's linked here, Portal Functional Skills. You'll find that in our YouTube playlist. Please be aware that if you are an international centre, you cannot book paper-based assessments for level 1 and level 2 functional skills, maths or English. Your entry-level learners will be sitting on paper, but that's fine because you won't have to post those anywhere internationally. We don't have to post them to you, you download them, and when it comes to the review, all of that can be done online. But be aware, if you're an international centre, please do not book a paper-based assessment. You will need to book an on-screen assessment. So for on-screen assessments, you must first register to take on-screen assessments from the online assessments page. And then please refer to the user guides and the technical specification on the online assessments page. And also the recording that we have, Surpass Online Assessments, that again, you'll find from our YouTube playlist. This slide shows you the schedule screen in Surpass for booking your on-screen assessments. You can schedule an on-screen assessment for a maximum window of 6 weeks from today, whenever that happens to be. This slide was created on the 5th of November, so the cohort will be able to sit an on-screen assessment later on today or at any point within the maximum booking window of 6 weeks that has been selected. Now the time given is UK time. Now you may think to yourself, well, I know that I want it to be sat at 9 AM in the morning, so you may be tempted to change the start time to 9 AM and then put the end time of 2 hours later. However, we do actually recommend that you just leave the time as it is. If you leave the time as it is, then it means that the assessments can be sat at any time, from 1 o'clock in the morning to midnight. So it just gives you a little bit of flexibility. By all means, you would be still sitting it at the whatever time you've decided, but if you leave the time there in Surpass to give yourself the maximum flexibility, that is particularly helpful, and particularly helpful if you're an international centre, because this is UK time. So if you put a specific time, if you want your learners to sit at 9 o'clock and you put from 9 o'clock till 11, and you're in a country that has a time difference to the UK, then your assessments will be ready at 9 AM UK time. So please be aware of that, particularly if you're an international centre. Once you've selected your learners, you are presented with this screen. And there's not really a lot to do on that screen apart from to click Next. You may be tempted to select this schedule for Invigilate. We do not recommend that you select the box to schedule for Invigilate, especially if your learners are sitting by remote invigilation. Selecting this option puts an additional layer of security on the assessment that can only be removed by the invigilator from your centre. The learner already has a key code to enter before they can sit their on-screen assessment. Selecting this box means that they also have to put a PIN code in first too. So the administration guide for online assessments also has this recommendation: please leave the schedule for Invigilate box blank unless there is a particular reason that you want to add that additional layer of security. Now we're going to take a look at the assessment structure for maths. Maths is split between the three core themes of number, shape, space and measure, and handling data. The assessment weightings have changed ever so slightly from the previous assessment strategy to the current assessment strategy as of October the 17th, 2025. The change that you will notice is only at level 1, where the number weighting is now 43 to 53%, and shape, space and measure weighting at level 1 is 23 to 33%. The other weightings for the other levels have all stayed the same and can be seen on this slide. The non-calculator section is worth 25% and comes before the calculator section, which is worth 75%. Underpinning skills is assessed at 25%, so that's the ability to do calculations when not as part of a problem. And these questions will be separated out into their own activities in the assessments that are live now. Problem-solving questions, however, problem solving is still assessed at 75%, which is why you will always find long, wordy questions in functional skills assessments where learners must apply their knowledge of the underpinning skills. The two sections are marked as a whole and learners are either given a pass or a fail. So it is possible to bring a mark up to a pass, even if learners don't do so well in the non-calculator section, for example. The entry-level assessments are based around one contextual theme, which you can apply to customize to make it more relevant to your learners. It's an externally set controlled assessment that is supervised rather than invigilated. So that does mean that the teacher can be the supervisor for the entry-level maths assessments. It's marked internally, so that would usually be the teacher who would then be the assessor to mark the papers. And then it's internally quality assured and then moderated by your external quality assurer. You can see from this table how the underpinning skills and problem solving marks are split between the two sections. The total number of marks at each level and the duration of the assessments has not changed from the previous strategy. It's simply the way that the assessments are laid out. Something else that's staying the same but was only introduced last September is our entry-level vocabulary lists. On booking, vocabulary lists will be immediately available in the additional assessor instructions. The vocabulary list can be used with learners up to 6 weeks before their assessments, and the additional assessor instructions which contain the vocabulary lists, while only made available on booking the assessments, do not form part of the confidential assessment material that must remain secure until the day of the assessment. So the designated person who books the entry-level assessments and must keep all assessment materials secure until the day of assessment, they will keep everything secure, but it doesn't apply to those additional assessor instructions. We would ask, please, speak to the person who's doing the bookings for you, speak to the designated person and ask for those additional assessor instructions, because then you can work through and make sure your learners understand all of the vocabulary that they're going to come across, the contextual vocabulary that they're going to come across in their assessment. Assessor instructions have been updated and they are available from the qualification pages, and additional guidance on support assessors can give is included. The structure of level 1 and level 2 maths assessments is shown here. So as we've said, the papers are classed as one paper in two sections that have to be taken one after the other. The non-calculator section comes first. Once learners have finished this, they'll be asked if they want to move on, and once they have moved on, they cannot go back. The non-calculator section can assess any topic that doesn't specifically require a calculator, for example, calculating the exact value of pi. There's just the one pass mark, so it is not possible for a learner to resit one section of the paper. The result is reported as a pass or fail for the whole paper. So learners don't need to worry either. What did I pass the non-calculator section? Did I pass the calculator section? It's irrelevant. It's what you get for the total number of marks as a whole. As an overview, what you'll notice here that is the same as the past papers is the timings and the number of marks are the same. One of the main changes is how the underpinning skills and problem solving marks are now separated out. They're separated out into their own activities. We're going to be looking at some example questions over the next few slides, and I'm starting out by highlighting what is the same about past papers and our new style papers. So when it comes to the structure of maths assessments, a contextual scenario will be placed at the start of each problem solving activity, so the learner has an understanding of the purpose of the maths. All questions that follow on in this activity follow on from this theme. Each problem-solving activity will contain a mix of all strands of maths: number, shape, space and measure, and handling data. So as an example, activity 6 on the slide is a level 1 activity from the calculator paper with Mel and a recycling business. And then activity 7 is from level 2, and again that's a calculator question, so the context is jazz and the kitchen makeover. In the past we had 4 separate activities with each with its own contextual theme, and in the past within each of those activities there was a mix of underpinning skills questions and problem solving skills questions. However, all live papers from October the 17th, 2025 are now in the new style, and we now have we still have 4 contextual activities at all levels, but these contextual activities only assess problem solving skills. We provide the units. Unless a question specifically asks the learner to state the units, units will be provided. So in the examples here on the slide, we can see that our answer needs to be in degrees, and so we can see the degrees symbol there. And then in the second question on the slide, our answer needs to be in days. So our unit of measurement is days, and therefore days are given in the answer box. We would also provide units such as meters or meters squared. This is the final slide for maths on what is staying the same. Working is marked. There will be questions specifically asking the learner to show your working, or the question may ask for working in a different way. Is he correct? Show how you decide. When this is asked, learners need to be aware that they will not achieve full marks unless they show their workings. So for these two, we haven't got the full questions for the two at the bottom here, but for these particular two, a learner who simply gives a correct answer would not get full marks. If a question does not specifically ask to show working, but it's a multi-step problem, there will be marks awarded for steps shown in the notes box that indicate how the learner solved the problem, even if they don't get the correct final answer. As an example, if we look at this question here. So John sees these weekly rental prices for flats. John will set his budget at 30% more than the mean average of these prices. Work out the budget for John. There's 4 marks available. Our learner has given an answer of £150.80. They've not shown any working, so how many marks can we give them? Well, their final answer is not correct. Therefore, we can not give them any marks at all. However, if we look at the working for this learner, we will see that it is possible for them to have gained marks. So this part here shows that they've got the first mark. So they've followed the process to find the mean. They have shown that they know to add together and then divide by 5. Unfortunately, they reached 580 instead of 590, which is why we've got the final incorrect answer. But the first mark they can gain because they've done the process. They do not get the second mark because the second mark is for the correct calculation of the mean. So let's follow on and see if they can get any more marks. Well, we can certainly look at how they have increased the mean value by 30%, and the process does state very clearly that it's any full correct method to find percentage of amount or percentage increase of amount. So they haven't written their calculations, as we'll see in the first column, 118 times 0.3, or even 116 times 0.3 or times 1.3, but they've gone about it in a different way, and that's absolutely fine. It is a non-calculator question, this one. So they can achieve that this mark here, the third mark, and then when it comes to the final mark, they can also achieve this mark. So it's a follow through. So FT stands for follow through. So there, 153.4, or what they got was 150.8, and they turn that into pounds by writing it as 150.80. So they've got 3 marks out of a possible 4 by simply showing their working. And questions that we were asked in the live session about this were that when you are marking, you are absolutely looking at the marks that you can award. So at the front of our mark schemes, it does explain NCFE's policy towards marking, which is to mark positively. We are looking for our learners to see where they can achieve. Another question on marking, somebody did ask, so if they just write the correct answer, they get all the possible marks? And again, that does depend very much on the mark scheme. For this particular question, for example, if our learner had not shown any working, but they'd given an answer of £153.40, the mark scheme tells us that for this question, yes, they would get all 4 marks. However, that is not true for all questions. So please take a look at the mark schemes, make sure that you are familiar with them, and you'll see very clearly from the wording of the question which ones you must show your working for. But as a general rule, please encourage your learners to always use the notes box to make notes as they progress in their problem solving to reach an answer. And we also got asked about how learners should show their working in an on-screen assessment. The best thing to do for an on-screen assessment, so in this example here, for example, we've got all of our addition is they've used column method, okay? In an on-screen assessment, it's very difficult to do that. So if the learner had simply written 120 plus 110 plus 126 plus 110 plus 124 and then equals, and then they could scribble their column method on scrap paper. You're allowed to have scrap paper in an on-screen assessment, and then they'd written their answer. Perhaps they have written as 580. That would be okay. And then they did 580 divide by 5 equals, and then they use the same method as this learner is here to do that division on paper, and then gave their answer. Again, that is generally the way that on-screen learners would be showing their working. So show the calculations that you're doing, but by all means do have scrap paper so that it makes it easier, if you're using column method or if you were using a grid method, for example, for multiplication. So using a combination can be helpful, but please make sure your learners note down the process that they are following, whether it be an on-screen assessment or paper-based. Now we'll get into the changes. So for all levels, we now have smaller, more manageable activities, although there is no change in the number of overall marks. As it used to stand, our assessments had 4 activities at all levels. The total possible marks available for each activity range from 6 at entry level 1 to 15 at level 2. These are the marks for the activities from the sample papers. The new assessments split out the underpinning skills questions into their own activities. The marks for the underpinning skills activities are shown in bold in the table. There's no variance in the marks available for the 2 separate activities at all levels in the non-calculator section. However, the assessment strategy allows for a slight variance in the number of marks available for each problem-solving activity in the calculator section. However, the number of activities and the total number of marks available will always remain the same. So as an example, at level 2 in the sample, for the calculator section, you can see there are 12 marks in the first problem solving activity, then we have 11 and then 12 in the final problem solving activity, but there could be some variance. It could be 11 for the first, 12 for the second, and then 12 for the third. So there's a slight variance could be possible between the total number of marks in the problem solving activities. Another change is the layout of the question demand. For anybody who attended or has viewed my previous CPD session on decoding maths questions, you'll remember that I suggested highlighting the question in a different colour to the key information for the question to make it easier to understand what the question is actually asking. But now the demand of the question is placed in a grey box. The question on the left is from a past paper, while the question on the right makes it very clear what the demand of the question is. Work out this area for Ruth, give your answer in square meters, meters squared. It is important as you prepare your learners for the new style assessments that your learners don't just go straight to the grey box and ignore everything else. For example, with this question, with what Ruth's trying to work out, with the demand is to calculate the area and give the answer in square meters. However, you do need to read the question in full to realise that we also need to use scale and then convert the centimetres into metres to find the metre squared. So the top tip of read twice and highlight key information still holds true. The biggest change that I'm sure you'll be glad to see is that as much as possible, the context has been removed from underpinning skills questions. Here we have some entry level 3 non-calculator questions, and there are very similar looking questions at all levels, including level 2. Now, there are some questions where a teeny tiny bit of context does support the question. For example, in this original value question. For this particular question, the context of the house and the house prices changing and the value of house prices from 2024 to 2023 helps the learner make sense of the question, since writing it with no context at all would actually make it harder to understand. So here I've written it out, remove the context. Does that make it easier? I don't think it does. I think it makes it harder, or even this one, an item. It's kind of confusing, even though the numbers are the same, the demand is the same, but adding that little bit of context with a house, something very nice and universal, does actually support that underpinning skills question. For all levels, there is now more variety in question types. For example, show a check of answers. Here we have an example from a level 1 non-calculator section on the left and a level 2 non-calculator question on the right. When learners give their answers, they may not always use the specific small boxes as in these examples, so where it says your check. They haven't written anything there, they've written it in the box above, but that's absolutely fine. Please remember that your examiner is a human being and they can award the marks. As a general rule, though, remind learners that they should be encouraged to check all of their answers. So they do need to know how to do reverse calculations in order to check their answers, and certainly it will help them if they do get a reverse calculation question. For entry level, so entry level 1, entry level 2 and entry level 3, there will be more scaffolding in some question types, for example, decision style questions. So here we have a question from entry level 2. It's a calculator problem solving activity, and the learner is supported by the tick boxes to remind them to give a decision as well as showing their working. And the same for this entry level 3 non-calculator problem solving question. They are reminded that they do need to give a decision by that tick box there. At level 1 and level 2, there is going to be an increase in the number of multiple choice questions. So this question 5D comes from level 1 and 1C comes from level 2, both of them multiple choice questions. There's been a reduction in the questions at level 2 that combine all 3 content areas, and the 3 content areas we mean are number, shape, space and measure, and handling data. In the previous strategy, there could have been between 2 and 4 questions in a paper that combined all 3 subject content areas. However, in the new strategy, we've reduced this range to between 1 and 2 questions that combine all 3 subject content areas across a paper. So for the example on the slide here, question 6b, you can see from the mark scheme that the marks available, the final column tells you the subject content statement. So the first 2 marks are for handling data, subject content statement 23. Then we've got from measure, and finally there is a mark available for number. So this question combines all 3 subject content areas. Here we have an example of our new mark scheme, or this mark scheme comes from the sample, but what you'll notice is that there is no change between our new mark scheme and past mark schemes. The first box in grey contains the required answer, with the remaining rows in white showing the method or mark breakdown to achieve this. There's clear labelling of whether the question is UPS, underpinning skills, or PS, problem solving. You have 2 columns that are provided to separate key information, so the process and then any additional information. And we also provide the subject content statement that will be assessed. And I'll hand over to Patricia now to look at the assessment structure for English.
The assessment structure for English is in the 3 core areas of reading, writing and speaking and listening. The spelling test is taken from a sample of 10 words from the DFE Functional Skills spelling lists. Each entry level has their own 100 words that learners should be able to read and spell. Entry level 2 learners will be expected to spell entry level 1 words, and entry level 3 learners all the entry level words. Contextualization will be allowed for the writing for entry levels. SLC has new changes to the tracker, which will be explained in the webinar. Dictionaries are needed for the reading assessment, and learners must not have access to external aids in relation to spelling, punctuation and grammar for the writing assessments, e.g. dictionaries and spelling and grammar checking software. All components must be achieved at the same level. Here is an overview of the main changes to English functional skills. At entry levels 1 to 3 writing, the spelling test is restructured into a multiple choice question and now part of the writing paper. And you can see the discrete punctuation tasks. Entry levels 1 to 3 reading, there's more emphasis on the main points of a text. For level 1 and level 2 writing, there is now a more accessible mark scheme for both levels. Although the number of marks per subject content statement has not changed, the way they are subdivided to align with the requirements has, resulting in the difference in the ways markers are able to allocate the marks for particular skills. The duration of level 1 and level 2 writing has been increased to 70 minutes. Level 1 and level 2 reading, so at level 1 more emphasis on assessment of the main points of a text, more accessible assessment of comparison skills, and at level 2 there's more accessible assessment of comparison and analysis skills. So what is staying the same in English? Well, the number of marks on all the English assessments. The number of source documents stays the same. These are regulated by Ofqual. The duration of the reading assessments, the external quality assurance process, the results release process, the data available to centres, the booking and results release process, these are all staying the same. For the entry-level reading, learners must be familiar with different formats across the following, for example, article, blog, letter, email, forum, web page, leaflet, flyer. For the entry-level writing, the spelling test, as I mentioned before, is incorporated into the main writing assessment and forms section 1. Assessors may read out the sentences for learners to select the correct spelling from the options presented. Learners must not have access to an external aid in relation to the spelling, punctuation and grammar when taking an assessment for writing. This includes dictionaries and grammar checking software. So looking at the reading component for the entry levels. So the learner is tasked with reading one contextualized source document. To gain marks, the learner is required to answer a mixture of multiple choice and short answer questions based on the document contents. So you can see for all the entry levels that section 1 makes up a total of 10 marks. At entry level 1, section 2 and section 3 give a total of 20 marks and the duration of 35 minutes. This increases to 40 minutes for the entry level 2 and 45 minutes for entry level 3. Section 3 will always be the writing composition at all entry levels. In terms of the writing assessment and how they are broken down, level 1 and level 2 will assess the following: formal letter, article, review, formal email, leaflet, formal report. The assessments are made up of 2 independent scenarios and are not linked, and as you can see, SPAG makes up a high percentage of the marks. So the writing at level 1 and level 2, guidance on the word ranges are given for one of the tasks. This is to ensure that a reasonable amount of words are used to meet the criteria. Online assessments will have a word count and a reasonable estimate in handwriting, so what they've been used to. A good example of good practice is what you could get your learners to look at what 150 to 250 words look like in their own writing, or the number of paragraphs they normally use, just so they're familiar with it. The mark scheme notes for subject content statement 24 are responsible to meet the criteria of the word count where given to be awarded for this mark. If no word count is stated, then the responses must be over 100 words to be awarded this mark. Also, notes for subject content statement 23 and 24, activity 1 and 2, prompts do not need to be strictly adhered to in order to access all the available marks. Full marks are awardable so long as the response is relevant to the question, clear, and otherwise successfully meets the criteria for subject content statement 23 and 24. So here is an example of the types of question for level 1. So you can see here, this one is an advert for casual work, and you decide to apply. So it's the Marsden Summer Festival. And as you can see, you would need to write an email to apply for this work at the festival. And in your email, it says you could talk about which roles you are interested in and why, what skills you have and what would be useful, and how the experience will help you in the future. And this one is worth 20 marks. The next one, activity 2, is to write an article. So this activity again has a possible 20 marks available. It says allow 35 minutes to plan, write and proofread your response. And again, it gives you some bullet points. So it says in your article you could describe the event, explain how you felt during the event, and give details on the best and worst parts. Your article must be between 150 and 250 words. So this one has the word count in it. So the reading assessment at level 1 is broken down into 2 tasks. The first section will use source document 1 and the second section at source document 2. At level 2, there are 3 activities. Comparison and analysis are now assessed across all 3 activities, which has allowed for the removal of the longer style analysis questions. At level 1, this will always be in the second section, but may also form part of section 1. And you can see on the screen some examples there. So we've got identified 2 things Ollie did during the app in text 2 that are mentioned in text 1. So you can see that's a different way of asking a question on comparison. So next, moving on to speaking, listening and communicating. So there are no changes to the structure and content of the SLC assessment. However, new learner observation forms and updated trackers have been added to the website. So a quick overview and reminder of how the SLC looks. So at a glance, you can see that at level 1, we have a short talk with a question and answer and a group discussion. Level 2 is a presentation with a Q&A and a group discussion. Entry level 1 is a one-to-one with the assessor and a one-to-one discussion with the assessor. Entry level 2 is a one-to-one discussion and a group discussion. And entry level 3 is a question and answer session and a group discussion. The question and answer session is in response to a short talk. The learners will do a question and answer for 5 to 10 minutes for entry level 3. So a general overview of the SLC. So centres are able to devise their own tasks that comply with the information and guidance provided in the guidance document. We have provided exemplar tasks if you wish to use them, and learners must demonstrate achievement against all subject content statements, and there is no recommended time frame for preparation as long as the learner is given sufficient time to research and plan as required. We do not require every speaking and listening assessment to be recorded. However, we ask for at least 1 recording per assessor per level per academic session. So that's running from the 1st of August to the 31st of July. Evidence and feedback. So assessors must complete the learning, observation and assessment record forms. So that's known as the LOR. This is to document the learner's performance. These forms are available from the NCFE website to download, and we also have exemplars as well, which provide guidance on the level of commentary required. All sections of the learner observation form must be completed, and the relevant subject content statements achieved should be ticked, and the learner must achieve against each subject content statement to pass. Assessors must use the comment boxes to summarise the learner's overall performance by using short statements and quotations to show how the learner has met each criteria. The learner observation forms must be completed by the assessor within 2 weeks of the assessment taking place and stored securely for sampling by the external quality assurer. Internal quality assurance must take place, and the IQA must quality assure assessors in line with the mark scheme and qualification specification. This needs to be included in the EQA review. And there's a link there to the NCFE website which provides further information on preparing for an EQA review. So to achieve a pass, learners must generally meet the requirements of the grading descriptors for all levels, consistently, effectively, and to an appropriate degree for that level. Learners who have not achieved a pass can resit. The learner should be provided with feedback outlining clear actions on how to improve. Before the learner resits this component, further teaching and learning opportunities should be provided. Next, the tracking document. All fields on the tracker need to be completed. This includes all booked assessments, so that's passed, failed, cancelled and expired. 2 new fields have been added, that's for the topic and for if reasonable adjustments are applied. You can use your own tracker, however it must contain all the fields from the NCFE tracker. Remember to upload the tracker to the secure folder your EQA provides in their planning email a minimum of 2 weeks before your planned EQA visit. This will support the planning of the EQA visit. On the NCFE website, you will also have access to example tasks should you wish to use them or to get ideas. All documentation and guidance will be in each of the subject level pages on the NCFE website. This includes the template for the learner observation and assessment record form, exemplars for each task, exemplar learner observation and assessment record forms, along with the guidance documents.
Now we'll take a look at the support you can expect from NCFE. As you begin your functional skills journey with NCFE, you'll be contacted by myself or Patricia. And part of our onboarding process is to contact you during your first year. We are committed to NCFE's core purpose of promoting and advancing learning, and to achieve this we plan to engage with you in curriculum consultations at 3 different stages. We'll contact you when you first gain approval, we'll check back with you at the midpoint as you're sort of beginning to prepare for assessments, and then after your first round of assessments for you to feedback and ask any further questions. We'll learn about your centre and specific support needs and cover pre-assessment preparations, signposting sample papers, key quality assurance processes, signposting chief examiner reports, etc. And we also have an ongoing programme of continuing professional development sessions that you can access. The NCFE website hosts subject-specific information and assessment information, schemes of work, sample past papers and mark schemes, as well as external links. This page is hyperlinked to our Functional Skills Delivery Support page. From there, you can navigate to each qualification page quite easily and find further information specific to functional skills.
Take a peek at our new functional skills resources in English and Maths, written to support classroom delivery and independent learning. All levels feature a detailed scheme of work covering all 55 guided learning hours of the curriculum. Comprehensive 2-hour session PowerPoints with class activities and embedded videos, some with AI. At entry level, learner workbooks support learning for sessions, and new end-of-topic project workbooks consolidate that learning. At level 1 and 2, comprehensive learner workbooks cover the whole curriculum. Available now.
So to download a free sample of our teaching materials, you need to first go along to one of the qualification pages. Once you're on the qualification page, hit Teaching Materials, and then if you select Find Out More, it will bring you to another page where it tells you a little bit about the resources, and there is a link where you can click to download the sample resources. I hope you enjoyed that short video on our teaching resources. Amongst our resources, we also have a free scheme of work, and you can access the scheme of work without actually purchasing the full teacher delivery packs. The schemes of work are available for all levels for both maths and English. This is an example of some of the PowerPoint slides for English that you can download from the free sample, and which also includes a worksheet there on inference. And this is an example of one of the workbooks that you can access from the free samples as well. So this one is getting ready to take level 2 writing. We've got the contents page there so we can see very clearly what's included. And then the sample just includes one of the sessions for you to take a look at before you decide whether or not you'd like to buy them. We've collated past questions for level 1 and level 2, along with worked answers for these, and you may like to use them at the end of a topic. To find them, they are on the Learner Toolkit page. So the Learner Toolkit page you'll find from the Functional Skills Delivery Support page, and then you can download the past questions collated by topic that are shown here on the slide. When you do download the folders, you can see they're all Word documents, and when you open those documents, it tells you at the start the past papers that they have come from. Now, obviously, these are past papers. They are not written in the new style. So you will find that there are underpinning skills questions that have a context. There are problem-solving questions where the demand is not highlighted. By all means, if you would like to, you can edit those past questions collated and make them look a bit more like the new style. However, certainly the questions themselves, they are assessing the right content, so they do stand as a resource that you can use throughout your delivery. As part of our commitment to shaping smarter learning, we proudly offer skills assessment and diagnostic tools. The most appropriate skills assessment tool for functional skills providers is Skills Builder. And as you can see on the slide, it gives you all of the information in full. You are able to do your initial assessment with your learners and the diagnostic. Your learners get an individual skills plan, and then they can work through the resources through the Skills Builder platform. If you're interested in Skills Builder, you can book a demonstration. You can contact the team to book a demonstration, and you may also be interested in FAST. FAST is simply the name we've pulled together the NCFE qualifications with the full teacher delivery packs and the Skills Builder platform. So the three things together in one becomes FAST, Functional Assessments Skills Together, and I'll show you a short recording on that now.
We're bringing together functional skills and skills assessment to offer one product, one solution at one price. FAST combines our functional skills qualification with skills assessment, skills builder and one assessment, with additional teaching and learning resources to provide one stress-free solution to improving attainment. Receive an initial assessment for both English and Maths in just 30 minutes. Identify skills gaps across both subjects with one assessment. Track your learner's journey from start to finish with Skills Builder, the diagnostic tool that can produce individual skills plans unique to each learner. Our FAST offer also includes a complete suite of teaching and learning resources from entry level 1 to level 2. And you'll also receive provider development support, along with all the benefits with NCFE, including our market-leading results in 6 working days for all external assessments. Talk to us about FAST today.
You can book an on-screen practice paper through Surpass to be sat in Secure Client. So that's exactly the same way that your learners will be sitting their live assessments. So to do this, you would go to the schedule screen from Surpass, choose your centre, choose the subject, and then when it comes to selecting the assessments to book, you need to make sure you're booking the practice papers. Now, please be aware that when you book a practice paper through Surpass, the learner work will not be saved. If you would like to be part of the mock marking pilot for on-screen assessments, please get in touch and let us know, because it is possible to book an on-screen assessment through Surpass. It would just be booked using a different subject name, and then it is possible for the learner work to be saved. So just be very, very careful if you are part of that pilot to make sure that you book it correctly, and then your teachers will be able to mark the saved learner work. It's also worth booking an on-screen practice for staff to test your systems. Okay, so it's not a problem at all for a staff member. It could be the teacher, it could be an IT specialist, to sit a practice paper in a learner's name. So you must use a learner's name in order to book it, and that's fine. So please do not register a staff member in order to test this. Please use a learner's name, and then the staff member can absolutely open up a practice paper and sit it in Secure Client to test your systems, make sure everything's working fine. So what is not okay is for a staff member to sit a live assessment. Absolutely not. And please don't register any of your staff. But we do recommend that you do have a member of staff testing the practice papers, because they will work exactly as the live assessments when booked through Surpass and sat in Secure Client. Alternatively, you can find our on-screen practice papers from the delivery support page, so direct from the website. So from the delivery support page, you can click on the tile that says Online Sample Assessments, English and Maths, and then that will open up the page where you can see you've got those purple boxes, and if you click on the drop down, you will be able to see there those sample assessments at level 1 and level 2 for both English and Maths. If your learners sit these assessments, and it does say there quite nicely in that green box, these practice assessments, they are for demonstration purposes. They are not marked automatically. They are not saved at all. So if you were wanting to mark responses, you need to screenshot answers or record them as your learners are going through them in order to be able to mark them. When booked direct from the website, well, not booked, when practiced direct from the website, the work is not saved at all. So use it as a practice, but perhaps use a paper one for timed mocks that you do wish to mark. And you've also got an on-screen Maths Tools demo there for your learners to practice with, and some on-screen English guidance. Now I'll turn to assessment delivery support. So again, from the Functional Skills Delivery Support page, you'll see there is a tab, Assessment Delivery Support, and then once you click on that tab, you will be taken to the Assessment Delivery Support page that is specific to functional skills, and there you've got tabs to explain the functional skills online automated feedback. You can also request additional feedback, so that's rich and compact feedback for functional skills, and also information on the transfer of achievement for functional skills English. So that's when a learner has completed one or more of their components of English, but they haven't completed the full certificate. Providing they can evidence that, then there's no need for them to do the components they've already completed again. The assessment delivery support page for all qualifications can be found from the NCFE website if you go to the customer and learner support at the top and then select assessment support. You will have this that opens up and you can see the full range of the assessment support. You can just click on the assessment support main page if you so wish, and then there's quick links to everything. But even from just clicking on the assessment support, you can see the menu that opens. So there you will find access arrangements, you'll find the regulations, you'll find information on remote invigilation and on-screen assessments. So lots of information there for you to access from assessment support. As we've mentioned, automated feedback is available for free for both on-screen and paper-based assessments, and it looks like this. You see the subject content statement and the percentage that the learner got correct for that particular subject content statement. Please do make sure that you access your free automated feedback. For on-screen assessments, you would access this through Surpass. For paper-based assessments, you would access the feedback from the portal. We've put together Padlets for English and Maths that pull together all of the NCFE links and information, but we've also added onto the Maths and English Padlets some third-party external links. So this is for resource sites and maths tools, for example, that are not necessarily NCFE endorsed, but many of our providers use them and we've used them ourselves, so you may find them useful. Our upcoming CPD events for Functional Skills Maths and English are listed from our training and events page. So again, to find the training and events page, if you go to the Functional Skills Delivery Support page and click on the Functional Skills events, and then from there you can see all of our events. So we've got our Teach, Share, Transform Best Practice Network that we'd love to see you along for. We've got on-demand events. We also have our on-demand onboarding recording. And then also further down the page, you will also find everything that's coming up live. So for example, in November 2025, this is what we've got coming up. We've got our drop-ins, which are monthly drop-ins, and we've also got our functional foundations sessions, which are particularly useful for teachers who are new to teaching maths or English functional skills. If you have any questions, please do get in touch. We'll be very, very happy to answer your questions following on from this session. We have our feedback form on this slide. This is a feedback form particular for our recorded events, so please take a moment to complete it. We do appreciate your feedback. We act on it and we do strive to continuously improve. And also, if you do have any questions, the feedback form itself is anonymous, but there is the option, if you choose not to have it anonymous, on the last question or so, you can ask us to follow up with you if you've got a particular question, or if you would just like some more information, then you may give us your contact email address. You don't have to, otherwise it's completely anonymous. And on this final slide, we have key contacts for you. So myself and Patricia can support with the planning, delivery and preparation for assessments for your English, maths and digital functional skills qualifications. If you have questions about additional products like FAST, for example, or pricing or resources, please contact our account managers. You will have your own individual account manager who looks after your centre, but if you're not sure who that is, you can contact the account management email address. Alternatively, you may have questions about the portal or Surpass. For portal or Surpass queries, please contact customer support. Patricia and I would love to help you with registering your learners, but unfortunately we don't have the same functionality in the portal or Surpass that our customer support colleagues do, so they can help you more directly with that. And then you also have information there for our skills assessment team. So if you have queries regarding Skills Builder or you'd like a demonstration, then you can contact our skills assessment team. Thank you so much for your time in listening to this recording. I hope it was helpful, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day or evening, whatever time of it is that you're listening to this. So thank you very much.